Hello, friends. This is Scott Monty. Stand by for commentary.
Welcome to the Full Monty, where you'll be exposed to commentary and analysis from the week's digital news. You give us 15 minutes, and we'll save you hours. And now, here's your host, Scott Monty.
Hi, and welcome to the Full Monty, an audio companion to the newsletter of the same name. Each week, I pick a couple of the more pressing issues and inject insight, opinion, and wit into this 15-minute show that's sure to give you a better sense of what's affecting your industry. Maybe you'll agree, maybe you won't, but I hope it makes you think. This week, pay attention to what you're agreeing to, and pay attention to the ethical decisions made by the brands that you love. There were a couple of hiccups recently that were minor speed bumps in the viral rise of Pokemon Go. Of course, the app seriously took off in the last couple of weeks, and everywhere you go, you can see people of all types playing the game. Now, for us, we live in a fairly rural area, and yet we still see parents walking their kids around the neighborhood looking for Pokemon. But in the rush to be part of this craze that's sweeping the nation, many people breezed past a couple of critical issues in the sign-up process that could come back and haunt them later on. The first is a matter of how you register an account to play the game itself. Within the first week of its debut, one security analyst noted that there were two options for signing up that were specific to iPhone users. You could go through an existing Pokemon account or with a Google account. Now, for those who didn't have a Pokemon account, they couldn't create one because Pokemon servers were swamped because of the popularity of the game. So that left them with just the Google option. But here's the rub. Normally, when you create an account, you see a message saying what data the app is going to be able to access. Something like, this app will be able to view your email address and your name. Right? No big deal. Well, when you signed up with your Google credentials for Pokemon Go, you granted full access to Niantic Labs and Pokemon. And when you grant full account access, the application can see and modify nearly all information in your Google account. It can read your email and send email as you. It can access all of your Google Drive documents, including deleting them. It can look at your search history and your maps history. It can even access your Google Photos, both public and private. Get the picture? Pokemon's creators acknowledged the error fairly quickly, saying Pokemon Go only accesses basic Google profile information, specifically your user ID and email address, and no other Google account information is or has been accessed or collected. End quote. From there, they mentioned they were working on a fix and that Google has verified that the app doesn't in fact access anything more than your email address and user ID. And with that crisis averted, here's another one to concern yourself with. Pokemon Go's terms and conditions, you know, the obligatory screen that you have to click and scroll through in order to activate a new app. Those T's and C's contain some language that means you'll give up your right to a jury trial or class action suit. This is in its arbitration notice section, which also refers to the agreement to arbitrate section further down. The good news is that you can opt out if you email or mail the company. That's right. The good old U.S. Postal Service will help protect you from the arbitration clause of the latest and hottest smartphone augmented reality app. I hope you're catching the irony. But let's step back a moment. Have you ever tried reading through an app's terms and conditions while you're on a mobile phone? Most of these T's and C's are longer than Hamlet or the U.S. Constitution. That's too long to read on a desktop. Well, terms and conditions are long for one reason and one reason alone. They were written by lawyers to protect the company. There's no thought of the user. If there were, there'd be a better user experience. This is an area of business that, to this commentator at least, seems to be ripe for change. Who's looking out for the average person? And how is an average person supposed to understand what's at stake? You need a lawyer present to advise you of the details. That's not really a practical thing for most people. But as usual, there's no customer centricity in these apps.
Get your trivia skills ready for the naked truth.
And now this week's Naked Truth trivia question. According to a spoof report on Medium this week, after more than 3 years as a fugitive, what were the circumstances in which Edward Snowden was captured? Answer at the end of the show. And now, page 2. Uber is the poster child for the collaborative economy. A unicorn many times over, it's purportedly worth $65 billion. And it achieved this status through ruthless determinism and a willful desire to ignore existing regulations in the hope of winning more customers. With a wildly loyal customer base, the service has proven itself useful, fast, and convenient. And when you add affordable to that, well, it's a lock. But can Uber's dominance continue with some of its recent decisions? We know Uber's made questionable decisions over time, decisions that impact its reputation. But, like Donald Trump, not even the most ridiculous and outrageous actions leave the merest dent in Uber's armor. For example, and I'll enumerate a few here, Uber sabotaged its competitor Lyft by ordering fake rides and then canceling them, so it would be able to pick up Lyft's fares instead. It tried to torpedo Lyft's fundraising efforts by telling VCs that Uber, was raising a round directly afterwards, and they shouldn't miss out on that. It fired 15 drivers by email over a misunderstanding. And to add insult to injury, the email font was Comic Sans. It threatened to hire opposition researchers to dig into the private life of journalists who weren't completely pro-Uber. It began offering subprime auto loans to its drivers. Uber cut its drivers' earnings to below minimum wage. It blocked drivers on Twitter who spoke out about fare cuts. Even as it's skimping on paying drivers in the U.S., Uber is pouring money into China, where it has only about a 1.5% market share against local incumbents, and it's losing $1 billion a year in China. Uber's been known to be rife with sexism, referring to its service internally as Boober, and suffering the embarrassment of Uber France's promotion to offer rides with hot models. As it was being sued in a class action suit, Uber hired a secret research firm staffed with CIA and NSA veterans to investigate the plaintiff's attorneys. The presiding judge in the case has already ruled the evidence constitutes, quote, a reasonable basis to suspect the perpetration of fraud. And most recently, it's not only undercutting all of its competitors in New York City, but it's undercutting public transportation as it offers Uber pool rides for commuters during rush hour. This is the kind of behavior that John D. Rockefeller was notorious for. The CEO of Standard Oil would secretly acquire railroads to control the distribution process and force his competitors to deal with him and his pricing structure. At some point, Uber's culture and questionable business practices will affect them. They seem to escape the watchful eye of journalists for the most part. There's no modern-day Ida Tarbell who investigated Rockefeller and Standard Oil, leading to its eventual breakup. But if more consumers understand the behavior of the company, there's going to be a breaking point where no amount of user experience or convenience can make up for its lack of ethics and basic human decency. And here's the answer to the trivia question. The CIA supposedly captured Edward Snowden while he was walking the streets of Moscow's Arbat district, where he was ambushed by an extraordinary rendition team illegally operating on Russian soil. According to agency sources, who of course wish to remain unnamed, Snowden was lured out into the middle of the night by a very rare Pokemon placed just a few hundred feet from where American intelligence agents suspected him to be staying. Be sure to check out these other major stories from the July 18th edition of our newsletter, including, if you're looking to move consumers from the involved to the committed stage of the relationship, the communications function has a role to play, as commitment cannot be bought, it must be earned. A new study from ComScore shows that ads on premium sites perform better. The report's called The Halo Effect, How Advertising on Premium Publishers Drives Higher Ad Effectiveness, and it shows a 3x increase in mid-funnel effectiveness and 67% higher brand lift on premium sites that charge premium prices. And finally, Twitter signed 3 significant live streaming deals with Bloomberg TV, with Pac-12 University Sports, and for the Republican and Democratic National Conventions. Well, that's it for this week. With any luck, your brain's a bit bigger now. Thank you for making me a part of your week and for being exposed to the Full Monty. Until next time, I'm Scott Monty, and I'll see you on the Internet.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe to the Full Monty newsletter and this program at fullmontyshow.com.
Remember, there are 3 L's in gullible.